I feel like I need to take a moment as I see the number clicking up and all you people arriving and coming together. For me, this feels like this is the moment that Wellspring has officially been born. It is so wonderful to see that we are really making this real. More than 200 people already here on this Zoom call, and so many others joining us on Facebook, that this is surely a huge step closer to us creating our vision, us making it real and creating a center of well-being with a mikveh at its heart, a place where people can be held, be guided, build resilience, and where they can heal. And what better time could there possibly be to be working towards such a dream when mental health and well-being is so fractured, when so many of us need that extra help and that extra support at the moment. And here we are, all of us together, a community of people focused on healing, on well-being, and on the use of the ancient Jewish immersion to guide us. So this evening, I'm going to ask people to have their screens on if they feel able to really make that statement of being part of this community that we are creating this evening. And if you have questions at any point, you can send them to Rachel, who is named as Wellspring Project Rachel, our director. And there will also be time for questions and answers at the end of this evening's session, just before 9 o'clock. And we'll also be taking questions via Facebook. So even if you're not in the Zoom where it's happening, do make sure that you feel able to give and feel able to comment on Facebook as well. We will be listening to you too. This evening, like all our Wellspring Project events, is free this year. So we'd be delighted if you wanted to go to our website at some point this evening, wellspringprojectuk.org, and do feel free to make a donation online. This evening feels like the event that if you were asked for your dinner party or a fantasy dinner party and who would you want to invite to have around the table, I feel like I've been given the opportunity to put my people into one Zoom room and really get to engage. This evening, we are going to be talking with Anita Diamond, Johnny Benjamin, and Rabbi Dina Brown. We're going to begin with Anita Diamond, who changed my life without knowing me and changed my life without intending to. Many of you know how the Wellspring Project came to be. After years of second pregnancy infertility, I made a journey to Maim Chaim in Boston, and it was the place that enabled me to take a moment to make a choice, to choose to be content with what I have, or to continue to grieve for what I couldn't have. Maim Chaim helped me find inner peace and contentment. And Anita Diamond is the founding president of Maim Chaim Living Waters Community Mikveh and Education Center. She's also the name on the books, an author of some of my favorite reads, whether by giving voice to those silenced in Torah with the red tent, or for creating the guidebooks that I recommend on an almost weekly basis on marriage, on conversion, or on living a Jewish life. Anita, it's so exciting to have you with us this evening. And I feel like we need to start with the big question of why. Why have you put so much of your life's work into the ritual of mikveh?
Well, first of all, am I on? Can you hear me? Yes, okay. First of all, thank you for the invitation and congratulations on this really wonderful kickoff for the project. And of course, we will here in Boston be following your progress and helping in whatever ways we can as you succeed. I, like most people, did not have a planned career. I did not ever plan, nor did I ever see myself as somebody involved with a mikveh, much less being part of starting one. And that happened because I was working on a book about conversion to Judaism, a guidebook for people, and went to the mikveh in Greater Boston that was open to the entire community, to the liberal Jewish community in particular, for conversions. But it was only open one afternoon a week. And if that was a holiday, Jewish holiday or state holiday, that week was out. So, and it wasn't comfortable. It wasn't welcoming for people who were making this remarkable choice of joining the Jewish community, nor was it comfortable or helpful for their families who might want to be there with them as they made this choice. So I thought, boy, it would be great if the community had a mikveh like that, if it was beautiful and welcoming, and also taught people about what mikveh was and expanded the use of mikveh. So because of the red tent, because people would talk to me, I started sort of buttonholing folks around town to say, wouldn't it be great? And isn't it important for us to, as self-respecting Jews, to take on the mitzvah, making it available to everybody? And I worked for at least 6 months to get somebody to be the president of the organization. And then I was told it had to be me. So I then spent, I think, 12 years as the president of Mayim Chaim, and went through starting up an organization, not my skill set. And in the process, learned enormously, met people in the greater Boston community I never would have met, made friends I would never have met, and been able to meet you, all of you here today. It's Mayim Chaim has gone far beyond the dream at the very beginning, and continues to unfold, and you're part of that dream. So that's part of the story anyway.
It's good to feel that we're part of the next chapters that are opening. So thank you. I know that when you first built Mayim Chaim, the uses of mikveh were quite traditional, conversion, nidah, and that was certainly the purpose of it. When did other uses start to take hold, and what sort of percentage of users are there for the sort of less traditional associations?
Actually, from the very beginning, we saw it as a place for contemporary uses, for non-traditional uses. And in fact, in Jewish history, people have used the mikveh for non-traditional uses. One of my favorite stories is that before the Zohar was printed, they took apart the printing press and took pieces of it to the mikveh because it was a sacred book. They put it back together again and they printed the Zohar. I don't know if that's true, but it's a great story. Also, there's lots of stories about people going to mikveh, men and women, prior to surgery, for example, to pray for success and healing. The custom of going in your 9th month of pregnancy, for example, is also not a halachic. It's not a traditional use. It's not written down, but it's been a common custom in many cultures. So from the beginning, we thought, yeah, absolutely, it had to be a kosher mikveh so people could feel comfortable for nidah and conversion and other things as well. And that was in our founding statements, and from the very beginning, from before the beginning, and continues to be so. So, and in terms of numbers, I think because people use the mikveh on a monthly basis or semi-monthly basis, if they're following nidah, the statistical uses of the mikveh look very traditional. But people come for all sorts of reasons as well. And during COVID, people have started to, when we opened, people have been coming for nidah. There are people who waited for their conversion to become complete, to come to Mayim Chaim before they took the final step, before they met with their Beit Din. And other people have come around emotional and physical needs for healing, and for those kinds of moments that you described, for letting go of pain and welcoming the next step in their lives. So it's a mixed bag, and I don't have the statistics at my fingertips.
That's fine. We're not a community of statistics. We're a community of people and relationships anyway. So it's interesting to hear. In terms of, we're here in January, hoping that this is the beginning of a better year than the one we've just endured, although that's not got off to the best start, either here or in the States. But what's the sense for you of the ritual of mikveh and new beginnings? Is that something new and unheard of, or is that something that actually is embedded in the ritual itself?
I think it is embedded. I mean, it's how many New Years do we have in our calendar, rabbis? We have several. We start and we stop every week. We begin anew at the end of Shabbat every single week. We start reading the Torah again every single year. The tradition is all about beginnings. It's a kind of actually it's a kind of mindfulness to realize that when you wake up in the morning that you have a new beginning right in front of you. So mikveh actually dovetails perfectly with those traditions. And the stories from Maim Chaim are remarkable about beginnings and endings of all kinds. So, and I can tell lots of stories, but I do believe that it's part of Jewish tradition. We're always beginning again and sanctifying beginnings as well. The beginning of a marriage, sanctifying the end of a life, and the beginning of the end and the grief that begins and then ends as well. I mean, that's what religion is for, actually, is to remind us, to keep us in those moments and to sanctify them.
And in terms of the physical nature of mikveh, and this idea of it helping to create us in a more kind of help us towards resilience and strength. Are there stories that you can bring us from Maim Chaim about that sense of the very physicality of the ritual being different to, say, either talking therapies or reading liturgy?
Oh, well, it's full body immersion. It's being naked in the water. It's being back in the womb. It's surrendering everything that between you and the world, right? You get yourself very clean. You go in the water with nothing between you and the water. It is a profoundly elemental ritual. It is why we go to the beach and we swim in lakes, and it is why we can meditate by the ocean and sit by a stream and feel ourselves connected to the universe, to God. And so I think it's you don't get more elemental than water. And so for our tradition, which is a very talky thinky tradition, this is the least talky thinky thing you can do in terms of ritual in particular, that it's just very powerful. And people who come out of the water, including young children, I mean, and children who are converting and bar and bat mitzvah kids who are about to read from the Torah for the first time, they get it. And they say, I'm ready. I feel ready. This made me feel ready. And I think that says it all in a way, that physical experience of going into the water, which for them is kind of weird. They overcome that barrier and find great meaning. And they can't always articulate it, although sometimes they do. Sometimes they say, I felt God in the water, or everything else fell away and I could really concentrate on what's ahead of me. So yes, it's all about beginnings.
And I suspect that part of your relationship with Maim Chaim has also meant being part of the mikveh guides and being with those guides who accompany people's journey. What does it mean to accompany someone for this kind of ritual?
Well, I have to say, I'm not a mikveh guide. I never trained. I think the executive directors as well, there's a kind of line because the mikveh guides are, they're anonymous in a way. They are there to serve the person who is in the water. And everybody who fulfills the role of mikveh guide, they go through 7 weeks of training and they shadow and they learn, are to a person will say, this is so much more powerful for me than it is for the person who's going in the water. I feel so privileged to be part of this, to help, to guide, and to stand back. Sometimes the guides don't know exactly why a person has come to Maim Chaim. We ask for statistical reasons, but it's not necessary to say. Sometimes they know very well, it's for nidar, they're in the 9th month of pregnancy. Sometimes they'll tell you their whole story. And you hold that and in trust. And so I think people know it. They are entrusted to witness and to be with and to accompany. And it's a truly remarkable experience. My husband is a mikveh guide, And he starts crying when he starts talking about the experiences he's had with everything from grooms and people who are joining the Jewish community, to people who are retiring, to people who are facing illness, to people who need physical help, who can't walk down the stairs and need to be carried into the water. These stories and these experiences touch people profoundly. It changes their lives and enriches them. It is, it's a great mitzvah, and it feels like one. Even doing the laundry, as the mikveh guys will tell you, it's holy laundry. And they do. And women who don't do laundry at home do the laundry at Mayim Chaim. So happily, gladly.
I long for the day where we can do sacred laundry. And I love the idea that the tears of the mikveh guide can contribute to our wellspring in that way as well, and be filling up the organization in that way.
There's a lot of crying in the mikveh. Actually, there's tears of joy and letting go of sorrow and grief and surprise, and it feels totally appropriate.
Thank you. Anita, we're going to come back to you as we bring in more people into the conversation. Sadly, Johnny Benjamin found that he couldn't be with us live this evening. So we managed to pre-record our conversation with him. And the piece that I was most anxious about was that I know that whenever people hear from Johnny, it's also about the questions that you have for him and the opportunity to be able to engage directly with him. He has suggested that we can visit his website, johnnybenjamin.co.uk, that if what comes out of this conversation is more questions for him, he is on the end of an email and would be more than happy to hear from all of us. And Johnny's a wonderful advocate because he knows better than most what preventative as well as therapeutic approach can do for people. Many of us know Johnny as the man on the bridge, someone who thought that he needed to end his own life until an unsuspecting stranger saved him. I was interested in how he's coping with lockdown, with January, with this difficult and isolating time. And so I hand over to award-winning mental health campaigner, film producer, public speaker, writer, and vlogger, as we turn to Johnny Benjamin, MBE. So, Johnny, today has been called Blue Monday, and we're told it's one of the most depressing days of the year, and it's certainly been a challenging time for just about everybody this last year. So what does it mean to be kind of creating a new beginning in these challenging times? And why would we be talking about mental health right now? Wouldn't we be better off just trying to make a new start and talk about nice things?
Yeah, no, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me. And very excited to be here. So yeah, I think actually, tough times, challenging times is the perfect time to start a new beginning, a fresh start. The lockdown, this new challenge presented me the opportunity to actually stop and to reflect and to slow down. And I really embraced that. And I started to do things that I hadn't done before, such as really take care of my, have a kind of routine in the mornings with washing, and it sounds really simple, but like washing my face and putting moisturizer on my face and looking after my hair. And because when you're just in the kind of the rhythm of life, which is just so, for a lot of people, it's just non-stop. You just don't have time to pause. Things get lost, things get forgotten about. But yeah, this new challenge offered me a time to actually do things that I hadn't done before, like the face moisturizing, like taking care of myself, and I really embrace that. So I mean, often what we do is we have these points in the year where we we have like Blue Monday or Mental Health Awareness Day, Mental Health Awareness Week. And those are the times when, you know, mental health is talked about and we really focus on it. But mental health is, you know, we need to look after our mental health 365 days a year, not just that one day here, that one day there. I think for me, something that's really helped over the years is acceptance, acceptance and compassion, self-compassion. So, you know, whatever place you're in today, so whether that is having a really difficult day or whether that is having actually quite a positive day, whatever it is, that's okay. That's okay. And that's, you know, you do you. And, you know, no matter what kind of is out there, we can be so influenced by, you know, what's out there in terms of like the diary that says 100% positive days, or the fact that it's Blue Monday and we're meant to feel sad. So I think it's really important that we don't get too affected by what's out there, and we kind of, yeah, really listen to ourselves in that particular time on that particular day. Does that kind of make sense?
Absolutely. And it feels like one of the things you've become kind of very good at is that piece around listening to yourself and understanding what you need, because obviously that's the piece that hopefully will keep you well. Have you managed to, in your time, sort of create any moments, any rituals that sort of have that reminder effect?
I actually, I had a really difficult period at the end of last year in 2020. I had a burnout and I went into a hospital, and that was hard. And but I came out of there and I was like, the thing is that I'd stopped doing all the good things for myself, like buying flowers to, you know, brighten up the place, or doing my meditation because the busyness of life had taken over again, and my self-care routine just was neglected again. But after I came out of hospital, I was like, no, I need to get back to that self-care, that kindness to myself. So that was, yeah, so that was the end of last year. Beginning of 2021, I'm in a better place, thankfully, because I think I'm going back to those rituals and, yeah, trying to look after myself, trying to be kind to myself. I think for me, the biggest thing is, the most important thing is meditation, mindfulness. So I incorporate it into my routine, and it's really important to stick to those rituals once you have them. I think it's so easy to let those rituals go. You know, you can say, oh yeah, but I've got that email to send, or I've got that call to make, but it's so important that we prioritize ourselves, our self-care. And so I'm trying to really keep that up, that self-care, those rituals, because they make a difference to my mental health, and I need to stay well.
And why do you think that we need a place? So Wellspring will eventually be a physical centre, a place that actively promotes that kind of personal resilience building and taking a preventative as well as a therapeutic approach to good mental health, and allowing this sense of kind of ritual, particularly immersion, to be part of well-being and recovery. Why do you think it's important to have a physical place to go and to do that?
I think we've got a long way to go in terms of our sort of mental health care system. It's not particularly holistic, and it's very much one size kind of fits all. You know, if you have a certain issue, then you are prescribed a certain thing. So, for example, you know, I've had many different periods of mental health illness throughout my life, and you know, it's always the same thing that I'm offered. Usually, it's, yeah, okay, you're not well, fine, then you have 6 sessions of CBT, of cognitive behavioral therapy, and there you go. And I speak to so many people who have the same thing. You know, they've got various different issues, and you know, we're all so different in terms of our mental health. We might, you know, 2 people might have depression, yeah, but they have completely different experience, they have completely different needs. But I think so often, you know, people try and put us into the same sort of box, and I just find there's such little choice and variety, and actually open-mindedness within our sort of mental health care system. It is one size fits all, and as a result, I speak to so many people who don't get the help and support they need, and it's so places like Wellspring are so important. I know so many people that could benefit from going somewhere like Wellspring, because they've tried other things and they haven't worked, and now I get so many emails from particularly families who are really desperate, who they say, well, my child, my sibling has tried all sorts of different things, the medication, therapy, and it just is not working. It hasn't worked. And, they're desperate to find other sources to help their loved ones with their mental health. And so I think, someone like Wellspring would be really important for that, somewhere
and maybe the key, you talked about the healthcare system, and actually rather than it being about a system, it being a place for individuals to be able to individualize their needs and their support.
Absolutely. And somewhere to be really, somewhere to actually be, again, sorry, I could talk about this for all day, but I've had various different therapies, CBT therapies, and it's so kind of rigid. You go in and there's, from the minute you walk in, there's like, right, Johnny, in the first 10 minutes, we're going to do that. In the first 20 minutes, we're going to do that. In the last 20 minutes, we're going to do this, and it's go. It's just so rigid and not flexible, and people can't be. They just have to kind of follow this kind of rigid system. But somewhere like Wellspring gives someone the opportunity to really be and to really not feel rushed. I think that's something people often feel, rushed and pressured to get to a certain point, like with their 6 sessions of therapy. They've got to be sorted within 6 sessions, and it doesn't work like that, So I feel like Wellspring will give people the opportunity, a place to really be and feel into themselves and feel what they need, because so often the answers are within ourselves, I think. But again, with our system, people aren't told that. So I feel like Wellspring could offer so much opportunity, for people to really discover themselves, what they need, their own strength, what's inside themselves. And I just think it's so rare in this world that we have for people to have the opportunity to really be and be held by people, the space around them. It's just so rare to find that, I think, that place of real care, real deep care and love. It's so needed.
Thank you. I so appreciate you giving us your time today and advocating for a project that I know needs exactly that. People who have lived experience of what it means to struggle and what it means to find those avenues of support. And I hope that in years to come, there will be a place where people say, it could have been different for me, but actually this was something that helped me just at the time that I needed it. And I know that we'll all take a lot of that advice from you about really our own looking after ourselves, to try and prevent getting lower and lower, and knowing to read our own bodies of what we need to look after ourselves. So we hope that 2021 gets better for you and easier for you and for the whole world, because we all need those blessings at the moment. And a huge thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So as we hold on to Johnny's advice and his blessings for this new project as we take these steps forward, it feels like an opportunity for a little bit of learning as well. And I'm not embarrassed to say it in this company that Rabba Dina Brouwer is a hero of mine. So people looking at us and looking at our titles, you may think that we have simply reached a similar endpoint on our journeys through life. And yet I can tell you that my journey didn't take bravery, not really much courage, and I didn't have to stand against the crowd to get where I have got to. What Dina has done for Orthodox women in the UK is extraordinary. She launched Jofa UK and co-founded Mishkan, an experimental trans-denominational pop-up Jewish community in London, focused on enabling individual Jewish journeys. She's now Director of Recruitment and Admissions for Yeshivat Maharat. And I'm personally very excited to see the launch of her new podcast, Prayerful. So Rabbi Dina Brower is going to make her introductions to the project by way of a Dvar Torah. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Miriam. It's a pleasure to be here. Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be the part of this launch of Wellspring. I am joining you tonight from Boston, which is home to Maim Chaim, and it's been delightful to hear from Anita Diamond, who I admire from afar, and that's not so geographically distant at this point. Maim Chaim was the inspiration for Wellspring, and I have visited when still living in London in 2017 because I had heard so much. I had learned so much in my practice of teaching brides and grooms in preparation for their wedding. And I'm delighted that Boston is my new home after living and serving the London community for so many years. When I first arrived in London as a young Orthodox woman committed to regular mikveh use, I found the local mikveh not particularly user-friendly, I have to admit. And while I could personally do with less than perfect mikveh experience, in my role as a Jewish educator, I was passionate about introducing the beauty and power of ritual immersion. Yet I was aware that more needed to be done to truly open mikveh and render them not only physically accessible, but culturally approachable to all. So this evening's Wellspring launch is a very personal joy and celebration. The Hebrew word for Wellspring is ma'ayan. And just like the word for water, mayim, it begins with the Hebrew letter mem. Each Hebrew letter corresponds to a number. And so bear with me, the number assigned to the letter mem is 40. And 40 is the biblical number for transformations. We have 40 days of pregnancy, the time it takes for an embryo to form, traditionally. So that's how people are formed and transformed into the first human. We have the 40 years in which the Israelites wandered through the wilderness, the time of transformation from being these runaway, disparate group of slaves, and the time it took for them to become one people. And then we have the 40 days and 40 nights, the time that Moses spent on Mount Sinai in that period where he left being immortal and kind of approached the godly to receive and absorb the details of the Torah and the law. And so 40 really represents transformation, and 40 is the number of units that are required to fill a mikveh. So the mikveh is filled with 40 units of water. It's a very symbolic and powerful number that symbolizes and speaks to this power of water to transform us in this particular setting. And I think that we talked about new beginnings, but I think even when there isn't an official new beginning, such as, getting married or some other very specific moment as a new beginning, we each need that opportunity to transform ourselves. To live, to grow, we need that space and ritual that affords us the opportunity to change, to shed an old skin, to heal a wound, to refresh and to emerge renewed. And at this particular moment of the pandemic, where so much of our life feels static, feels like Groundhog Day yet again, I think we all crave that opportunity to look forward to a period of transformation and growth. And so I'd like to leave you with my favorite quote from Mircea Eliade, who was a leader leading interpreter of religious experiences who lived at the turn of the 20th century. And in his work called Patterns in Comparative Religion of 1958, he writes as following: in water, everything is dissolved. Every form is broken up. Everything that has happened ceases to exist. Nothing that was before remains after immersion in water. Not an outline, not a sign, not an event. Immersion is the equivalent at the human level of death at the cosmic level, of the cataclysm which periodically dissolves the world into the primeval ocean. Breaking up all forms, doing away with the past, water possesses the power of purifying, of regenerating, of giving new birth. Water purifies and regenerates because it nullifies the past and restores, even if only for a moment, the integrity of the dawn of things.
Shakar, thank you for those truly beautiful words and for enriching us with your learning. I'm going to bring Anita back into the conversation and keep you with us, Dina, as we allow the people in the room with us to ask their questions as well and to bring their voices into the conversation. There's an option to be able to type your question on the chat. We've realized it is the benefit of Zoom question and answers because when we think of our questions in such a condensed way as we type them, it tends to enable us more space to be able to talk. So as we're collecting those questions, I have one to start with, which is the idea of whether the mikveh, especially as we aim to create it within the heart of a centre of well-being, do you see it as a public or a private place? Is this a public building? Is this a communal space? I'm used to communal spaces looking like Jewish community centres and synagogues. What do you feel is the mikveh a public building? Is it a communal space? Oh,
okay. It is a public space in a specific kind of way. Actually, when we were talking about what we wanted it to be like, to look like, one of our earliest board members said she wanted it to feel like a home that people would be comfortable in, so that there would be comfortable seating and obviously tea and cookies and things like that, so people would really feel welcomed in. At the same time, it's an appointment home. It's a place that you don't just sort of wander into. And so people come with intention, but it belongs to the community. Ours is a community mikveh. So we want people to feel ownership of it as well. And we want guests and our visitors to understand, because it's a beautiful, welcoming and open place, why this is important, how this is important. And that's been our experience. And of course, there's public spaces in the mikveh and there are private spaces in the mikveh too. So that it's very clear. There's the wet side and the dry side, as we call it there. And the wet side is where the pools are and where the bathrooms are. And those are for people with specific reasons for being there and needs, and privacy is premier. It's very important. The rest of the building is for education and for celebration to some extent too. People come for all kinds of reasons to celebrate, after conversions, before weddings, of course, and other big major joyful transitions in life. And they bring friends, they bring family, they occasionally bring a Torah, and celebrate. So that's a public space. So you can have it both ways, I guess is what I'm saying.
I'd love to say, actually, Rabbi Miriam, that you put your finger on the actually test for a good mikveh. I think is that it embodies both, right? That is accessible to everyone. Everyone feels like they can come in, they have permission to come in, they're invited to come in, but also that in the moment it feels private and you connect and you feel at home in it. So, and I do think that Maim Chaim achieves that beautifully. But I think that is the challenge for a mikveh.
And I think I would just add that idea that when we're dealing with mental health, it needs to also be seen as somewhere that is a public space, that it's not a taboo, but somewhere you can be completely private and not being talked about, and that ability to be able to do something private in a public space, the place that welcomes you in but isn't judging you, and is again that sense that I know Mayim Chayim has managed to get so beautifully right. I'm just looking into the chat to see what questions are coming up, and there's a question that has come in about whether the mikveh would be open to non-Jews. Will it be open to the non-Jewish community? And for us, that's very much a question that as soon as you put boundaries around who can come in, you're already putting questions on, well, how do we define who's Jewish, and by Jewish, by whose definition? And therefore, the space will be open to anybody who wants to use the provision that is there, and the wonderful blessing about a kosher mikveh is that it's how it's built and kept, and not about who uses it, and therefore the public space will feel very Jewish, but actually there won't be questions asked about who's coming in to use it. So somebody has asked, which it would be a great question for you. Preparation for mikveh can be extremely anxiety provoking. How do you synthesize this with the mikveh being a place for well-being? So how do you get that synthesis right? Anita, is that something you want to start with? Dina, is that something you want to contribute to?
Well, yeah, preparation has become a barrier for a lot of people in their minds, even if they've never been to a mikveh. There's this sort of notion that that you're going to be looked at carefully, and you're going to be examined, and you might be rejected. And one of the things that we did at Mayim Chayim was, if you go to most mikveh, will have a list on the wall for preparation, what you have to do to clean yourself. And at Mayim Chayim, we translated, we used the same, we gave people the same information, but we made it beautiful and poetic and accessible. And we also made another one for children so that they could access it as well. So you're asked to look in the mirror and take a breath and slow down, and you were made in the image of God. So, you know, so that so we try to hit notes that calm people down. Also, at Mayim Chayim, people make decisions about who witnesses them and what they wish their witnesses to do for them. So many people some people go into Mayim Chayim without a witness, without a guide. They need to be alone. Some people who, especially if they're going in for a halachic reason and that matters to them, they want to make sure, they want a guide to make sure that they've gone all the way under. But our executive director, Carrie Bornstein, who is our Maharat, has also found text that says you are responsible for your own immersion, and that it is your body, and you're responsible for how you prepare and what that means. So a hair on the back doesn't mean you're not kosher to go into a mikveh, if that's the way you understand preparation. So we try to remove that barrier. And actually, the more people come to Mayim Chayim and have that experience, the less this this threat happens. It's sort of receding. I think fewer and fewer people, especially in our community, come in with that kind of anxiety. Kids don't, for sure, because they don't have that. The kids in our community don't have the experience of fearfulness or worry about coming in. They come in with open eyes and curiosity, and they're treated with respect, and they're welcomed, and they have a good time, and it belongs to them. Then it belongs to them for the rest of their lives.
Thank you. Dina, do you see the mikveh as somewhere that's anxiety provoking?
I think all rituals can bring out sometimes our own anxieties in different forms, and can sort of bring out, whatever wellness that we're experiencing where we are. We can sometimes express it in anxiety around cooking or hosting or anything else. So I think it is no different, but it needs a lot of intentionality. And I think that, yes, one of the things that I had loved about Mayim Chayim, admired, was this checklist of like thinking about rather than have you done this, like how to lean into it as part of a ritual and appreciating one's body and the gift that is. So I think it's really to do with education. I think the fact that Wellspring is going to marry the mikveh with wellness is really, I think, bringing two really important things together. Yeah. You're not muted. You're muted.
Oh, can we unmute Anita?
The nudity frightens people. The idea that you go into the water naked, and you may have come in with an idea that someone's going to watch you do this. And sometimes for children, especially children coming for older children coming for conversion, it's a big issue. So that needs to be addressed. And I'll give one wonderful story. A young woman had been studying for conversion, and she was very anxious about the mikveh. And so she made an appointment to come and see it beforehand. And she saw what it was going to look like, and she saw what the doors looked like and what privacy there was going to be. And she said, what had been kind of a nightmare for me is now a dream. And I really look forward to coming in. The whole notion of being seen. People don't understand the rabbis are not going to see you. Actually, even people just have this anxiety about nudity too. So, but again, if you make it clear that you are in control of who sees you and how you embrace this mitzvah, it goes away. And the more people feel good about it, the more they tell other people, and we can get rid of some of the stigma that's attached to mikvah.
Absolutely. Education is so important, and for people to kind of see it first, it really helps. I remember taking a group of pre-bat mitzvah girls and their mothers to the mikveh, and they were so impressed. And they also were, finally telling me what they had pictured in their mind before they had seen it. So the unknown is much more spooky. They kind of pictured this like huge thing and like a whole bunch of naked women in line waiting to kind of dive in. So of course, in their mind, it was much more extravagant.
Someone's asked whether there is traditionally, they've asked specifically in Torah and Talmud, but is there specifically a mention of the connection between mental health and rituals, the rituals that are woven into Judaism? Is that something either of you would like to take on? No?
It is interesting because I think I'm so shaped by learning through Chassidut, through mysticism. And so there's a lot of almost psychological perspective on it. And I think rituals are incredibly powerful, and they speak to anchoring us in different moments or to our psyche, but whether that's explicit or we read into the text is, a line that isn't always so clear. But I think I can only see it in that way in so many different aspects. So for me, it is definitely, something that speaks to that.
I often talk about the fact that the rabbis of old were incredible psychologists, and all you need to do is look at sort of the journey through bereavement, for instance, and being able to understand the funeral and shiva and the shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning, and the first year and the yahrzeit, to understand that kind of the journey that we're being taken on is a very powerful psychological one through the rituals and through the rules. So I think that sense that what we're combining here is rituals that are given to us as fix, this is what you're meant to do, and being able to understand and appreciate the kind of the well-being, the resilience behind that. And I hope that that's certainly what Wellspring will do. We're not creating rituals from nowhere, and we're not taking the idea of psychology from nowhere, but being able to marry those two and to be able to allow people that sense. For me, the power of the mikveh, of those three immersions, of being able to look back, to be in the moment, and to look forward, is really as powerful a statement of who we are and what we're having to deal with at any moment than you can get. And to be able to physicalize that in such a way is really important for me.
Absolutely. I mean, Anita, you were talking about sort of being mindful near water and how that's it's facilitated by the water. And actually that suspended breath right, underwater for that moment, we're like really forced you to stop and restart. So there's definitely very powerful psychological, matter in each of our rituals, as you're saying. And we have new language to translate that. So we may not find the same language, but we read into it with our own modern perspective, and we find it,
Yes.
useful. It works.
It's all metaphor. I mean, this is such a powerful, transformational, elemental experience. I think all great spiritual moments are. So the language can't reach it. So we just sort of dance around it and try to come up with similes and metaphors for it. And the more the better. Somebody needs something else. Everybody needs something else. Yeah.
We've been asked to say a little about maintaining the halachic levels of the mikveh within this kind of more modern context and within the area of well-being. Is that a challenge that's been part of Mayim Chaim's life, and how does one maintain in Boston that sense of the halachic nature of the place?
Yeah, we have 7 guiding principles, and one of them is halacha, and that means that the mikveh was built according to Jewish law, which of course is open to interpretations. And we hired a rabbi, a conservative rabbi, who was also a structural engineer, who was our guide through the process and looked at the blueprints and so on and so forth. Getting somebody to supervise, which means to check to make sure that that the pools are maintained properly, cleaned, that the water that's coming in has not been carried, that it's really naturally flowing water. We have been blessed in Boston to have different people who have taken it on as their mitzvah. Again, conservative rabbis. We've also had some rabbis who've trained in New York at the brother organization to the Maharat. And so we have, I don't know exactly what the schedule is, but there's a statement on the wall in the mikveh that says it's built to halachic requirements. And for some people in the more traditional community here, that's what they need, and that's what's sufficient. And the idea was we want to make it available for everybody, and we really mean everybody. So as to broaden it, to make sure that it's kosher. It's not everybody in the traditional community here is comfortable at Mayim Chaim. There are other alternatives. But we didn't want that to be a barrier for people to use. So we take that seriously. We take the maintenance of the pool seriously. We take supervision seriously. But people who come don't, it's invisible. That is invisible.
Well, it's invisible. I think it's important also to have transparency. So I think the fact that it is spelled out on the wall and people can read it or can look on the website, I think that's really important to know what halachic standards, what the approach is.
It's important.
Yeah.
Thank you. Absolutely. Very practical question of a mikveh ought to open this time of COVID, and how are people coping who use it on a regular basis?
I'm happy to answer that, but you go ahead. Why don't you go ahead, Rabba? So
I was just going to say that it's varied. There's definitely been a lot of work around making it feel safe, both practically. So, a lot of my colleagues who are involved directly with the supervision of mikvah have kind of gathered to kind of think about all the process. And there's been a lot of stress. So there's been a lot of extra pastoral work from, rabbis in general to support people who have to go monthly and it feels stressful to go. I have to say, I have used Mayim Chaim during COVID, and I was really pleasantly surprised and felt very comfortable. But everybody has different anxiety levels around COVID, and it's good to again be transparent and be really in good communication with what the process is and what the standards that are being kept is.
We were closed for a while. Oops, and the staff and the board brought in medical experts and and public health experts, and there was a decision made, especially when things first locked down, when people didn't know what to do and what was safe. So we were closed for a period of time, and it has been opened carefully with incredibly strict protocols. The mikveh guides have been trained. The building is cleaned carefully. So the safety of our guests was really it was really paramount, was the bottom line, which I think is also rooted in Jewish law. So we didn't want to put anyone at risk. And of course, some people are still not comfortable. Over the summer, people who use mikvah on a regular basis found natural bodies of water. It gets harder here starting in October. So, but some of our folks have come back. Some of our regular users have come back, and I'm glad to know that it's been comfortable for you, Tina.
Yes, I do have to say I had to, miss out on a pre-Yom Kippur because it was cold.
Yeah, we were closed. It was hard. That was really hard.
And the ocean is cold around here, even in August with 90 degrees weather. So
I am going to say a huge thank you to you both, and particularly for allowing us to end with such a note of both being able to protect people physically, and that their physical health is so important at this time, whilst we're also thinking about really being there to support people's mental health at this time as well, and helping us to think through that sense of what it means to build resilience, to be able to create places of healing, and to be able to use our ancient Jewish rituals in all sorts of ways, but also one to be able to bring both meaning to our lives and also a sense of being carried by the waters of the mikveh, as we hope we can also carry each other as a community of builders at this time. So a huge thank you to Anita Diamond, to Rabbi Dina Brower, and to Johnny Benjamin for their extraordinary words this evening, and for bringing this birthing moment of the Wellspring Project UK. I want to thank our amazing group of trustees and volunteers who have been working flat out over the last number of months and throughout lockdown, who have been working on the front line in their medical worlds, have been working for the Jewish community and in all sorts of professional capacities, but have still given time and effort to bringing this project into fruition. I want to particularly thank Chessie Weiner and Rabbi Deborah Blorston for their ability through social media, through publicity, for building our webpage, for being able to create of so much that happens behind the scenes this evening. We couldn't have done it without you. A huge thank you to Rachel Heilbronn, who is our Wellspring Project Director, who is the most formidable boss that I've ever had, and she's completely amazing, and I think the most organised person I know, and Wellspring definitely wouldn't exist without her. A huge thank you to the international mikveh community. Who knew even such a thing existed? Rising Tides Open Waters Network, which is the dream child of Mayim Chayim, has been the most amazing community to connect with, and to know that we're not the only people in the world desperately trying to build a mikveh, but can gain the insight and wisdom from so many others. I want to thank our donors who are part of this project from the beginning. We are supported by the community to be able to create this. So please, you don't need to wait for us to speak to you. You can dive right into this Wellspring and help us financially as well. We have a small number of founding donors, but we really need to be able to reach out to so many more of you to be able to create all that we have talked about this evening. So you'll see on the screen that you can visit wellspringprojectuk.org to be able to not just give of your generosity of money, but also to sign up to be a part of what it means to be part of Wellspring from the beginning. My absolute dream is that all of you who are online this evening will go and visit the project website and become a drop in our Wellspring. There's nothing that you need to do other than tell us who you are and that you'd like to be associated with the project, so that when we open our doors, you can say, I was there from the beginning and I was a drop in the Wellspring when it was just a little puddle before we became a mikveh and so much more. on Instagram from 4 o'clock today and each day up until Mental Health Awareness Shabbat this coming weekend. Thanks to Chessie and Rabbi Deborah, we're bringing music of well-being to give us a lift every day. So do enjoy that sense of being able to dip into the project in lots of different ways, and come and learn with us again. Our next public event is February the 15th, which will be followed by 3 workshops run by our volunteers and the wonderful teachers who are part of the Wellspring community. We're going to be teaching on building a community mikveh, on rituals and things that happen to our bodies. So please get in early, sign up, log in, and be part of this incredible project. A huge thank you to you all for joining us this evening, and I hope that you will be part of this community for many, many years to come, and look forward to seeing you each step of the way. Many thanks.